If you look at my district right now, my district is bordered on the west by the Gulf of Mexico, bordered on the east by I-75, and then it goes from Pine Ridge south to US 41, and it stops at Rattlesnake Hammock Road now. So it's changed, but it's still a fabulous, interesting neighborhood. The district, you can go to the beach. We have the ocean, we have the Gulf of Mexico. We also have wonderful facilities for golf, private and public. We have Bayshore. We have a fascinating mix of the original Collier County mixed with the new growing. And it's a very exciting time to be a commissioner, I think, because of the change and because of the obvious commitment of the people to not only live here, but to value the quality of life they have. Before I was elected in 2014, the Whippoorwill Marbella Lakes issue came before the commission. And at that time, Marbella Lakes prevailed. They didn't want this opening. They didn't want the connectivity that this one road that dead-ended before it hit Marbella Lakes Boulevard. They didn't want that open. They were worried about the traffic. They were worried about people racing. People walked along there. They were very concerned. Well, maybe about 3 years into my first term, there was a knock at the door, and growth manager said, you know, we got to open this up. And clearly at that time there wasn't support to walk away from it. And I knew that my neighbors, the neighbors there, would lose if they said no. So we brought the leadership in, we had a meeting, and we said, it has to happen. How can we do this? So the county, this is such a wonderful story. The county worked with the neighbors maybe for 2 or 3 years, came out there, walked it, talked to them, went to meetings. And what has been created is I think, a wonderful example of what this county will do to preserve the beauty and also create the connectivity that is so necessary for our transportation system. It's so beautiful, and all the Marbella Lakes had all the people that came to these meetings, and they were sometimes standing room only. People left, they were angry, but it's come down to where everyone's happy about it, not pleased that there's an opening, but when you put 3 roundabouts on the road connecting with a roundabout on the road that it intersects, traffic is slowed down. And I'm not sure that we could have even done that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because roundabouts weren't that popular. Now they are, and we're using them. There's something about this county, they don't let grass grow underneath their feet. They stay up on the latest and look at it and are very concerned about people's safety and very, very concerned about making sure that the neighborhoods are preserved. It's my understanding it's next year, which is 2022. So we'll all look forward to that. This area, West Goodlet area between Goodlet and US 41, is an example. It's the original county, correct? It's so old. And what they did, the infrastructure dates back there. Today, when we build, we have big lakes beside new buildings, and the water drains into the lakes and everything is good. Back then they didn't. There's not one square inch to put a lake in to drain the land. And we learned the very hard way during Irma what happened to these people. I was so shocked to drive the streets after Irma came through and see people's belongings out on the street. I mean, couches and beds, and it was awful, and they were flooded out. So what the city of Naples, they had a plan going back to probably 2005 to come in there and move people from septic to sewer. So we worked with the city and we said, if you're digging up those roads, let's put in some stormwater so we can direct the stormwater away from these areas. And that's what we did. But then Big Cypress Basin came in and said, we will help you with this project. And all that water from that neighborhood flows down the Goodlet ditch, which we dug out and made better, and it goes across the road at Freedom Park, and then it goes down a long ditch, and that's what Big Cypress Basin helped us with. This was farm country, and this ditch drained the land. Well, we improved it and widened it and actually put a bend in it, and now there's a spreader, a weir. It moves the water through Freedom Park. That water is cleaned, and it is developing the marsh and the swamp of Freedom Park, and then it goes down through the aquifer and goes out into the waters around and also the Gordon River. So what we did is we stopped the flow of stormwater into the Gordon River, and any water that gets there is purified and cleaned as much as we can. And it helps the critters. So it's very, very exciting. You know, Freedom Park is such a jewel because you can go in that park and you can walk that boardwalk and you can look at the birds and you can hear the birds. And for some reason you don't hear the traffic, but you walk out of Freedom Park and you can walk to Dillard's. You can walk to the mall and have a cup of coffee. So this is such an example of urban stormwater management. The county again has been extraordinary with this. They got on it and they made it right. They replaced the pumps, they've done everything. So now we have a system that works because sea level rise is part of this. Sea level rise, when the tide is high, that water doesn't flow, and they've engineered it correctly. So I'm very, very proud of the county. It's not me, it's what the county has done for these people. Bayshore is an area that's been put within the CRA, and the CRA is designed for blighted and slum areas, and it's a lot of the area around Bayshore is also in the CRA. And what they do is they establish a tax base, and then any taxes that appreciate over that are put back into the neighborhood. So there is a base by which they operate. But because of the configuration of this CRA, they invested and purchased a lot of land, which they could do in Bayshore. They bought that land, and then the market fell down. So they have been in debt for quite a few years, slowly climbing out of it. But there is one woman that changed Bayshore and brought Collier County to Bayshore, and that's Rebecca Maddox. She created and went there when it was Kelly Road, and she took a little inn and made it into 360 Market. And then when I was running in 2014, she told me, I'm going to be doing something on this lot. And I thought, well, okay, and it's going to be a food, and I said, food truck park, what is that? Celebration Food Truck Park came out of the ground. And all of a sudden, the street was transformed. Now, meanwhile, we've got development going on. The botanical gardens grew in stature. It's at the end. We had pickleball, deciding that East Naples was going to be the center for the Open. The U.S. Open for pickleball is in East Naples. Oh my goodness. What has happened is an explosion of attention to Bayshore. And what it has done is brought that connectivity from the city of Naples to Bayshore, because all of a sudden it's not East Naples, it's Bayshore. And you know what? This is pretty nice through here. And what she has done now is building a wine bar. It's called the Maddox, and Rebecca is the public part of it, and the Maddox is the private. But she has done something that this town has probably needed for years. You know, the Winter Wine Festival, the Naples Children Educational Foundation, they came, and 20 years ago they decided, a small group of people decided, you know, we like to eat and we like to have lovely wine and we want to raise money for these kids. And I think there is a underserved population here. Let's look into it. And they did, and they found it out that there is a huge population underserved of children in this community. And what they did is got together and decided they would do a fundraiser, an annual fundraiser, and it's called the Winter Wine Festival. In 20 years, they have raised $220 million. And, oh, by the way, they have finally found a permanent home. They built a building in my district off of Goodlet. That celebration, which is a week-long celebration, they want to support. But it's 1 week and then it's done. And Rebecca, in her amazing way of looking at things, said, you know, this community needs a place where people don't have to go out on the golf course to do business. They can come here. We can have a private and we can have public, and we can have fine wines being served, and we can have wonderful food and chefs, and we can have tastings, and the public can enjoy it as well as the private club. So it's a club and it's public, and it's going to have wine cellars, and it's going to have a room where you can have meetings, and it's on Bayshore. You know, you scratch your head and say, why didn't anybody else think of that?
Right.
So it's very, very exciting. What is the I think for me, it's the creativity. Bayshore markets itself as creative. You know, it's the creative place. And clearly, the creativity is not just art. It's in the businesses that have decided to make Bayshore their home, all of those businesses. And it's a very exciting time to be the commissioner of the District of Bayshore. The East Naples Community Park was a wonderful passive park where some folks played tennis. They even had a skateboard park in it. They had some soccer fields. It's next to the school. And so it was used by people, basically kids, and to walk there. And along comes pickleball. And they loved it. They loved the ambiance. They loved the mature trees, the intimacy of the park. And so we said, okay, we like this. And oh, by the way, Collier County, wouldn't you like to be the home of the US Open for pickleball? We said, sure. Championship court was built. Tennis courts were moved to pickleball courts. More pickleball courts were formed or were created. And then it was clear that they needed to have a place, because pickleball doesn't end after a week of the pickleball here. Pickleball continues all year round, and it's growing. And they need a place for, a central place for people to buy things and to pay their membership, and just to have that physical center that people could go to. And you know what? The bathrooms have been improved. And so all of that has gone into the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center should be finished by April the 14th. And just by accident or plan, the Pickleball US Open will be the last week of April. So yes, we will be finished. Well, the mock commission meeting is something that we started several years ago, and it brings in students from schools, middle schools, across our county. It's done, again, in a wonderful, productive partnership with the school and the school board. And what these kids do is they sit and participate in not only being commissioners, but being petitioners, asking for something. When I first came here, I brought a couple of youth groups up here, and I was just showing them, okay, here's my office. And these were kids, you know, maybe teenagers, young teenagers, maybe 11, 12. And And they looked into the chambers. I said, "You want to see the chambers?" They said, "Yes." So their eyes opened. I said, "Why don't you go sit up there?" And they did. So we had our inaugural, mock commission meeting where I brought forth an issue, and it was about animals on the beaches. And the 5 of them on the dais argued it. And it just caught. You could see it. It became real for them. And I said, what if we could do this for students in the civics? You had a Mockley sitting watching what Gulfview was arguing. And the staff has been fantastic. The staff would prepare and would come up and pretend they were petitioners. They would pretend, they became the public. They disrupted the meetings, and the chair had to settle it down, and they had to make motions and do all these things. Well, on this particular one is one I'll never forget. They became so engaged, Immokalee kids became so engaged with what Gulfview was doing and what they were arguing, they wanted to know if they could speak. I said, "Yeah, come on up and speak." So they registered as speaking, and they argued. And it was the most exciting because no one wanted to leave. And that's what it's about. If we can engage the youth at this level about what you can do and how important your individual voice can be, then we have created a civics lesson that can never be duplicated. They will understand it, and that's what I wanted to do. District 4 is a vibrant and growing community, and it's my privilege to serve the people in my district.